There is a pipe that outlasts the foundation of the house it serves. It kills bacteria on contact, resists corrosion for over a century, and carries water without leaching a single chemical. Your plumber will never suggest it. He has been trained not to. We did not stop installing Type K copper because it failed. We stopped because a pipe that lasts 100 years does not generate callbacks or replacement part sales. A material that outlives the building is a threat to the service model. This is the story of heavy wall Type K copper, the 1950s workhorse that built American water infrastructure and was quietly replaced by plastic tubing that degrades in sunlight, cracks in cold, and gets eaten by mice in the dark. Copper's legacy. As a water conduit begins in the sands of ancient Egypt. At Sahur's mortuary temple, built nearly 4,500 years ago, archaeologists uncovered copper tubes, hand-rolled, soldered, and still intact after millennia. These pipes, crafted from 99% pure copper, were engineered to channel water for ritual basins and drain rain from sacred courtyards. Metallurgists studying fragments labeled EGM23-001 found traces of antimony, a purposeful alloy that made the tubes flexible yet strong, a technical choice preserved in the metal even as its reasoning faded from memory. Roman engineers advanced this tradition. Vitruvius, Rome's renowned builder, praised copper's resistance to rust and its ability to keep water sweet, free from the sourness that iron and lead imparted. Roman plumbari hammered copper sheets into pipes, bent them over mandrels, and soldered the seams. At Herculaneum's baths, archaeologists found pipe fragments with uniform diameters and drawbench seams, evidence of standardization rare in the ancient world. Modern tests confirm copper's advantage. After a day, its surface kills over 99% of E. coli, a property unmatched by clay or lead. Medieval guilds in London listed copper pipe for royal baths and holy fountains. By the 16th century, Venetian patents described drawbenches producing continuous copper tubes, moving beyond the patchwork joints and corrosion of earlier materials. The Industrial Revolution transformed copper into a commodity. Steam-powered rolling mills in London and St. Louis pressed copper into seamless tubes. Factory records from the late 1700s show miles of pipe drawn daily, each batch tested for thickness and strength. By the 1880s, extrusion methods in Pittsburgh and the UK produced copper tubing, ready for shipment across oceans. From Sahur's temple to 19th century foundries, each generation's plumbers, Egyptian metalworkers, Roman plumbari, industrial machinists, pursued the same goal, a conduit that would endure, carrying water reliably through the centuries. In the years after World War II, a quiet revolution unfolded in the world beneath our feet. The American Society for Testing and Materials, ASTM, gathered a committee of metallurgists, engineers, and city water officials in 1946. Their task was to define a national standard for copper water tubing that would guarantee strength, purity, and reliability for generations. The result was ASTM B88, ratified in 1955. It was a document that codified 3 grades of copper pipe by wall thickness, with Type K at the top. At a nominal wall of 0.049 inches for half-inch pipe, Type K was engineered to survive crushing soil, relentless water pressure, and the unpredictable violence of freeze-thaw cycles. Its green stripe became a mark of trust for any system meant to last a lifetime. Municipal records from mid-century Chicago tell the story in numbers that still stagger the imagination. 3.2 million feet of Type K copper, specified for Project C-5623, were laid beneath the city streets in the 1950s. Daily logs from foreman Joe Malloy. His handwriting still legible in the archives, record leak rates so low they barely register, less than 0.001 gallons per minute per 1,000 feet. The pipe was not just installed, it was measured, tested, and stamped with mill certifications, each length traceable from foundry to trench. Maintenance records decades later confirm the promise. The copper mains remain in service, outlasting the engineers who signed off on their installation. Trade journals and builder catalogs from the era carried bold claims: copper pipe for a lifetime. Advertisements from the Copper Development Association promised water that stayed clean, pipes that would never rust, and a system that once installed would not need to be touched again. In Los Angeles, Portland, and dozens of fast-growing cities, city councils and water boards adopted Type K as the default for new mains and service lines, citing the new ASTM standard as justification. The scale was national, the confidence absolute. Before plastic, before the era of disposable infrastructure, Type K copper set the benchmark for permanence. The buried green stripe became a silent guarantee, a promise that water would flow untainted and uninterrupted for a century or more. Inside a sterile laboratory, the numbers strip away any illusion of parity. Type K copper, half an inch in diameter, endures a hydraulic assault to 10,720 pounds per square inch before bursting, a figure that dwarfs the 6,850 pounds per square inch average of PEX A. The copper pipe's thick wall, measured at 0.049 inches, shrugs off mechanical crush tests at 1,340 pounds, while the PEX specimen collapses at just 620 pounds. On the data log, the margin is not subtle. It is a chasm. A lab technician, gloves tight and voice flat, records the next round, antimicrobial efficacy. Coupons of copper and PEX, each inoculated with E. coli and Legionella, are submerged in a controlled water matrix. 2 hours later, copper's surface registers a 99.9% reduction, bacteria eradicated by the silent release of ions. The PEX coupon, unchanged, provides no resistance. In the hospital sector, this difference is life and death. The technician resets the bench for ultraviolet exposure. Over 12 weeks, both pipes endure relentless ultraviolet irradiation. The copper's oxide patina deepens, its strength undiminished. PEX loses 22% of its tensile strength, the polymer chains breaking down under invisible light. The result is clear. Copper's stability is elemental, while plastic's promise is brittle and brief. These numbers are not marketing. They are the outcome of accredited ISO 17025 certified tests. Burst, crush, antimicrobial action, ultraviolet resistance, every metric tilts toward Type K copper. In the language of evidence, there is no contest. Yet these results never made it to the center aisle of the home center. The story behind that omission is not technical, but economic. The credibility of every claim about Type K copper rests on a single, unchanging number: wall thickness. For a half-inch Type K, the ASTM B88 standard sets that figure at 0.049 inches, an exact codified measure, not a marketing boast. That number appears in the ASTM B88 table, a document ratified by engineers, city officials, and metallurgists in 1955 and reaffirmed in every revision since. The table defines the minimum wall for each grade: Type K at 0.049 inches, type L at 0.040 inches, and type M at 0.028 inches. These are not suggestions or manufacturer targets. They are the legal baseline, enforced by mill certifications and third-party inspection. Every length of type K copper sold for water service must meet or exceed this thickness, with the value stamped directly onto the pipe and traceable to a batch test report. The green stripe matters. It is not a brand. It is a guarantee that what lies beneath the surface conforms to a public published standard, one that any engineer, inspector, or homeowner can verify. The numbers on the ASTM B88 table are cited in building codes, municipal procurement contracts, and court documents. They are the backbone of every durability claim made for type K copper. For this film, every technical assertion is anchored in those standards. In the film, the ASTM B88 table appears, with the wall thickness of 0.049 inches highlighted, and a direct citation to the standard. This is a documentary, not an advertisement. Every figure is sourced, every claim traceable. The promise of type K is not a rumor or a trade secret. It is a matter of public record, open and auditable, and for decades hiding in plain sight. In the late 20th century, the fate of type K copper was no longer determined by engineers or builders, but by a new set of actors: code committees, retail buyers, and corporate strategists. In 1975, the Uniform Plumbing Code stripped its explicit copper mandate, opening the door for plastic systems that promised lower upfront costs. Within a decade, the American Water Works Association and state legislatures, under direct lobbying from the Plastic Pipe Association, rewrote procurement rules to favor polymeric mains. Tax incentives followed, rewarding projects that specified PVC, CPVC, or PEX over copper, regardless of long-term performance. The numbers are staggering. By 2024, the global plastic pipe market reached $60 billion, fueled by a compound annual growth rate of 7%. Retailers responded by redesigning the plumbing aisle itself. The new retail buyer archetype, armed with a price sheet, not a torch, chose PEX kits stacked at eye level with quick connect fittings and colorful marketing. Copper, heavier, and 3 times the price per foot, was pushed to the back, its green striped coils reserved for licensed contractors or special order. The economics were irresistible for builders. A PEX crimp joint could be installed in 2 minutes, compared to 15 minutes for a soldered copper fitting. Labor costs dropped, installation speed soared, and the supply chain locked in volume discounts that made plastic the default for every tract home and remodel. Wholesalers and distributors signed exclusive agreements with polymer manufacturers, driving the per-foot price of PEX as low as 70 cents, less than a third of type K copper, which now hovered near $3 per foot, including fittings and solder. The supply chain realignment was not a technical decision, but a financial one. Every plastic joint, every proprietary fitting, every quick connect adapter became a small but steady revenue stream, guaranteed to return when the next leak, failure, or code revision brought the customer back. The aisle layout itself became a silent policy, steering the market toward disposability. Behind the scenes, the retail buyer incentives aligned perfectly with the industry's new business model: fast installation, lower skills, and a predictable replacement cycle. The promise of a pipe that would last a lifetime was replaced by the certainty of repeat sales. In the world of plumbing, permanence became a liability, and planned obsolescence the path to profit. The consequences of this shift: chemical leaching, rodent failures, and the erosion of trade skill would surface soon enough. But for now, the economic stakes had been set. The plastic takeover was complete. Inside the walls and beneath the floors, the promise of plastic pipe unravels in the fine print of field reports and legal dockets. Certified laboratory analysis reveals what the eye cannot. PEX, exposed to hot water or disinfectants, leaches measurable quantities of MTBE, 0.42 milligrams per liter, detected by GCMS in new installations, alongside tert-butyl alcohol, toluene, and trace BPA. These are not trace curiosities, but compounds flagged by the EPA for potential health effects, especially in systems serving infants and the immunocompromised. The numbers are not isolated. A 2022 field study found MTBE in 18% of PEX-supplied homes, with concentrations above provisional health-based guidance. Copper, by contrast, yields only a whisper of ions, well below regulatory thresholds, and with documented antimicrobial benefit. The vulnerabilities of plastic extend beyond chemistry. Inspection records from multifamily housing in the Midwest document a 7% puncture rate in PEX runs, the work of rodents drawn to the soft polymer at joints and bends. Each breach is a silent disaster. Water seeps through insulation and framing, feeding mold and decay long before any leak is noticed. Copper, with a Brinell hardness of 120, shrugs off the same attacks. Rodent damage is virtually absent from decades of copper service records. Sunlight is another silent adversary. Accelerated UV aging tests show PEX loses up to 30% of its tensile strength after just 2 years of intermittent exposure, a risk in basements, crawl spaces, and attics where careless routing is common. The result is embrittlement, microcracks, and a rising curve of failures that begin long before the advertised half-century lifespan. Copper oxide patina, on the other hand, only grows more protective over time, indifferent to light or heat. The cost of these failures is not theoretical. In 2022, the California State Water Resources Control Board issued a temporary ban on new PEX installations for potable water, citing unresolved questions about chemical leaching and rodent vulnerability. Class action lawsuits have forced manufacturers to settle for $42 million, with court records detailing undisclosed risks and premature failures. Warranty periods have been extended to 25 years in affected jurisdictions, not out of confidence, but as a concession to mounting evidence. Beneath these headlines, the true price emerges when the numbers are run over the life of a building. A net present value model, using a 3% discount rate, projects the total cost of PEX ownership at $7,210 over 30 years, driven by replacement cycles, leak mitigation, and water quality remediation. Type K copper, by contrast, settles at $5,870, its higher upfront price erased by decades of reliable service and the absence of hidden repair bills. The gap widens further when factoring in the cost of health risk mitigation and regulatory compliance. For regulators and plaintiffs alike, the calculus is clear. The cheap pipe becomes the expensive pipe, paid for in callbacks, lawsuits, and the slow erosion of public trust. In the quiet corners of the trade, a handful of plumbers still carry the torch for heavy wall copper. They are not relics, but custodians, men and women who learned to sweat joints by hand, to gauge the heat of a torch by the color of the flux, to trust a soldered seam more than any plastic crimp. One such craftsman, gray at the temples but steady at the bench, recalls the days when a finished loop of Type K was a badge of honor. He can still run a 30-foot hospital recirculation line without a single leak, a skill that fewer than 1 in 8 new apprentices claim with confidence. The United Association's own survey puts the number at just 12%, a collapse of mastery in a single generation. Inside the labyrinth of a major urban hospital, an engineer watches over copper loops that circle patient wards like arteries. Here, the stakes are measured not in dollars, but in lives. Legionella, the invisible killer, finds no purchase on copper's surface. Infection control guidelines demand at least 30 feet of Type K upstream of every patient fixture, a barrier that plastic cannot match. The Association for the Advancement of Medical Instrumentation and the American Society for Healthcare Engineering both recognize copper's role, not as nostalgia, but as a line of defense. The knowledge survives in these hands and these halls, a living memory of what permanence looks like when profit is not the only measure. The survival of this craft is not just technical. It is a quiet act of resistance, a refusal to forget what truly endures. Inside the supply house, the rules are different. Type K copper, the pipe that outlasts generations, is not found stacked in the retail aisles or listed on consumer websites. Its green-striped coils rest behind the counter, accessible only to those who know what to ask for. The trade-only model is deliberate. Wholesalers serve licensed plumbers, municipal buyers, and hospital engineers, not casual shoppers. At the counter, a manager scans a QR code stamped directly onto the pipe, a digital link to the mill's certification report, verifying wall thickness, alloy composition, and ASTM B88 compliance. This is not marketing. It is a chain of custody that stretches from foundry to trench. The green stripe, uninterrupted and unmistakable, is the visual proof that the pipe meets the original heavy wall standard. No proprietary fittings, no patent-locked connectors, just open, standardized material sold by the foot or the 100-foot coil. The manager points to the ASTM stamp, a string of characters that can be traced back to the batch test. For those determined enough to seek it out, Type K copper remains available, unchanged by the retail shift to plastic. The supply chain is quieter now. The path to permanence is still open for those who refuse to settle for disposable piping. Today, nearly every new home is piped for replacement, not permanence. The industry profits as plastic systems degrade, while Type K copper, proven to last a century, has been quietly erased from the codebooks and supply chains. The question now is not whether copper endures, but why durability is no longer allowed to compete. Some secrets corrode in silence, but this one runs through our walls. Tell us where you stand in the comments.